Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, San Diego State University is in hot water with the county after students and faculty become sick on campus. What caused the illness and how the university is responding. Plus, rehabilitating violent criminals from the inside out, the local group making a change.
Zoos didn't know how to care for pandas. They didn't know how to raise pandas, how to get them to reproduce. But over the years, through studying their behavior, from working on different scientific aspects, we've been able to turn that around.
And the pandas are leaving the San Diego Zoo and heading back to China. What researchers have learned about these vulnerable creatures. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's April 2nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. San Diego State University and its contractors are facing backlash for allegedly releasing volatile chemicals into the air, causing students and faculty to become sick with headaches and nosebleeds. iNews Source investigative reporter Brad Racino explains how the county is responding.
The county's investigation lasted little more than a week and was prompted by an iNews Source question about odors from chemicals used during a roof repair project. Those odors caused at least 22 official complaints among students and faculty that led SDSU to close the Professional Studies and Fine Arts building last month. The Air Pollution Control District sent notices to SDSU, Sylvester Roofing, and Tremco Roofing and Building Maintenance. They alleged violations of the California Health and Safety Code and district regulations. SDSU, Sylvester, and Tremco have 10 days to respond to the county in writing of any actions taken to correct the alleged violation or reasons they believe the violations didn't occur. The county will then determine whether to dismiss the violations, assess penalties, or move forward with civil or criminal prosecution. The CEO for Sylvester Roofing told me earlier today that his company disagrees with the county's findings and that Sylvester Roofing took the precautionary measures required. Tremco said in a statement today it has been working closely with Sylvester Roofing and SDSU representatives to bring full resolution to the situation. We reached out to SDSU for a statement, but we did not hear back in time. The building is scheduled to reopen on April 9th.
With so many people impacted, what is SDSU doing to address their concerns?
They're holding two open forums on the topic. One is happening tomorrow morning from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on campus. The second is taking place on April 8th during the same time period. The talks will include a physician, a fire safety expert, and an industrial health consultant. Back to you.
Thanks, Brad. iNews Source is an independently funded nonprofit media partner of KPBS. Some relief could be on the way for community college students who are homeless. Today, state lawmakers proposed a measure which would allow students to sleep in their cars overnight in campus parking lots. A recent study found of nearly 40,000 community college students surveyed statewide, 19% reported being homeless in the previous year. Lawmakers say it's a harsh reality that takes a toll.
I did attempt to sleep in my car on campus and was asked to leave several times by campus police. So I resorted to sleeping nearby off campus, which was not well received by the residents of the area.
The bill passed out of the Assembly of Higher Education Committee today and moves on next to the Appropriations Committee. When a life is taken violently, possibly the most impacted person is the mother of the victim. That's why a local group called Mothers with a Message is vowing to break the cycle of violence by rehabilitating offenders from the inside out. KPBS reporter Maya Travosi has the first part of a two-part series.
It's a busy morning at Mount Hope Cemetery in San Diego. A freshly dug grave awaits its new resident, while others are being prepared for theirs. It's a familiar place to Bevelyn Bravo.
This is where my son is buried.
7 years ago, her 21-year-old son, Jaime Jr., was stabbed and left to die as he walked out of a friend's house in City Heights.
They didn't know my son, but I believe that day was some sort of gang day.
Her pain as raw now as it was then, and during the 5 years she spent in court, until two men were finally convicted of Jaime's murder.
And I went into court crying for the son that I had lost, and I left that courtroom crying for these young people that decided to take my son's life. I took so many pictures of him when he was little.
She decided to use her own tragic story.
This is him growing up.
To affect change. Together with other moms of murdered sons and daughters, she formed a group called Mothers with a Message.
It's a mother's pain. We carry our child for 9 months. And when that child is taken, at whatever age that may be, something inside of you dies.
The women took their grief into the community, hoping to divert youth before more murders took place, but also after, within the correctional system itself.
Look how many people that you've hurt because of your choice.
And that is exactly where Dennis Martinez knew their message would be taken most to heart.
When I heard that story, when she shared that time for the first time, you could hear a pin drop. And I knew that this was going to be a success.
Hi, I'm former world and U.S. skateboard champion Dennis Martinez. I lost everything.
He turned a life of addiction-fueled crime into prison ministry.
I don't care if they're blasted with tattoos or if whatever crime they've committed. If they're willing to change, I was willing to work with them.
He now runs a faith-based residential treatment center in Spring Valley for offenders entering back into society.
When you go to prison, your family goes to prison. Your wife goes to prison. Your kids go to prison.
Training Center is a state-licensed facility that offers housing, counseling, and workshops designed to help transition men back to life on the outside.
You can never go back in time and change what took place, but you sure darn well can change this moment right now and move forward to make sure that it never happens again. And that's my job, is to get these guys prepared to come out. And so I need the right tools to accomplish this. So I need the shotgun blast. And the Mothers with a Message is my shotgun blast.
Together, Martinez and Mothers with a Message created a curriculum of rehabilitation, which they then brought inside the walls of California prisons.
And you would see hundreds of inmates come. They would stop what they're doing, and they would listen to what the moms had to say, and then they would talk about what it was like to lose a kid, and then they talked about, I forgave that person who killed my kid. They hear forgiveness. They hear redemption.
For many offenders, it would be years, even decades in prison before they can humanize their victim.
And a lot of them break down because a lot of them want to get to their victims, families, and say they're so sorry for what they've done, but they don't know how to say it. And so they get there and they hear this, and they break down, the hardest of the hardest criminals crying.
Hey, Mike, we served time together. We went through the struggle.
Matthew Conant was 19 when he entered the prison system.
I shot and killed somebody. I was arrested, convicted, and sent to prison on a 20-to-life sentence.
He served 25 years, mostly in maximum security facilities, before finally earning parole. But he says it took most of that time and a long list of behavioral infractions before he would change his mentality, never expecting to be released. He says the Mothers and their Message finally gave him a vicarious look at his own victim's family.
And if you're any bit of a human being or have any humanity left in you, when you hear their story, you can't help but realize what you did and despise what you did. And it just changes it remolds your thinking. So the class is priceless.
And put myself in this position where I'm locked in this cage every day.
Now as a free man, Conant, also known by the rapper name MC, joins Martinez and Mothers with a Message inside the prisons.
So we out here living, right?
And at Training Center.
That means we got an obligation to do what's right while we have a chance to do what's right, man. Don't squander your time.
Testifying how he was rehabilitated from the inside before he was let out. Maya Trabulsi, KPBS News.
Tomorrow, in part 2 of this story, KPBS reporter Maya Trabulsi takes us inside a state prison where inmates are crossing racial lines to give back to new victims of homicide. More than 80 women are suing Sharp Grossmont Hospital and Sharp Healthcare, claiming they were videotaped without their consent. That's according to KPBS media partner iNewsSource. The lawsuit was filed in San Diego Superior Court and claims as many as 1,800 women were secretly recorded between 2012 and 2013. The women say it happened while undergoing sensitive surgeries, including C-sections. Sharp has apologized, saying the video surveillance was intended to catch someone who was stealing drugs from surgery carts. iNewsSource first broke the story about the video surveillance in 2016.
Is it your intention, sir, to close the border this weekend? What would it take to not close the border?
Well, I haven't made that intention known, and I'm ready to close it if I have to close it.
President Trump is ready to shut down the southern border if he does not reach a deal with Congress on immigration reform. Speaking at the White House today, the president said Mexico is taking steps to hinder illegal immigration, but wants Democrats in Congress to help rewrite current immigration laws. President Trump also acknowledged the potential negative impacts to the economy by shutting down the border, but said trade isn't his top priority.
Sure, it's going to have a negative impact on the economy. It's one of the biggest trade deals in the world that we've just done with the USMCA. It's a very big trading partner, but to me, trading is very important, the borders are very important, but security is what is most important to me. I have to have security. This is what this gentleman is all about, to my right. And we're going to have security in this country. That's more important than trade. Hey, all you hear me talking about is trade. But let me just give you a little secret. Security is more important to me than trade. So we're going to have a strong border, or we're going to have a closed border.
Although Congress recently denied President Trump billions of dollars to build a southern border wall, lawmakers did agree to fund more than 50 miles of wire fencing on the southern border. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh takes a look at where soldiers and Marines put up the razor wire.
The Pentagon says the mission to lay concertina wire ended Sunday. In November, President Trump tweeted a photo of the border wrapped in razor wire after a group of migrants was seen scaling the wall on TV, saying, "No climbers." Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen visited the same spot.
So we're out here at Friendship Park. This is where the border fence meets the ocean. At the start of this operation, Secretary Nielsen was out here to tout the work of the Marines. We can already see this concertina wire is starting to sort of lose its luster. It's starting to sag in parts. We're seeing debris being caught up here. There's a big pool of wire down here, all tangled up at the bottom. And of course, as you keep going down here, it just stops right at the top of that piece of fence, and then there is no wire going forward.
A smaller section laid on the beach is now just a tangle of wire. A spokesman for Army North says it's up to Homeland Security to maintain the wire once the troops have put it into place.
So this is an example of what the Marines were laying. It's called concertina wire. Some people would say this is barbed wire like they use with cattle, but this is actually much sharper. If I take a piece of beach debris here, it'll all get caught in these fine razor edges. The same thing will happen if you get caught in there with your clothes or, of course, with open skin.
Beginning in October, the Department of Defense was asked to wrap portions of the U.S.-Mexico border in concertina wire, starting with the ports of entry. In November, we visited the Marines working near the border crossing at Otay Mesa.
Now, if you go further west, you can see plenty of evidence of concertina wire up on the wall. But if you look behind me and go back all the way along the border, there's no wire whatsoever.
The Pentagon says a total of 180 linear miles of wire were laid along the border, including 46 miles in California, around San Diego and Calexico.
So now we're in Otay Mesa, right next to the truck entrance. You can see plenty of evidence of concertina wire along here, stretching all the way back to the Tijuana airport. Now, DOD says they put the concertina wire wherever Border Patrol asked them to put it. Now, we've reached out to Department of Homeland Security and the Border Patrol to ask them exactly what the plan was. So far, we haven't received a response.
The Department of Defense says about 1,800 troops were used to lay the wire. The cost of the operation hasn't been released. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a look at President Trump's judicial nominations as the Senate moves to speed up confirmations. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
We're here at the San Diego Zoo to say goodbye to the popular giant pandas that are getting ready to leave and go to China at the end of the month, now that the loan agreement with that country is coming to an end. Their departure comes as researchers make strides with conservation efforts. So we're here now with Bob Weesey. He's the Chief Life Science Officer for San Diego Zoo Global to talk more about the panda's departure. Right. So Bob, I know it wasn't a surprise to the staff, but I'm sure they're going to be missed. Anything special happening these next few days?
Well, it wasn't a surprise. We've had loan for now 23 years, so we knew it was coming to an end at some point, and that day has arrived. And so the staff is missing them, but they're taking good time with them now, preparing them for the trip. Some of them will be going with the pandas when they go back to China. But they're also thrilled that we were able to accomplish so much in the time we had them.
Bob, can you explain the loan and the relationship with China?
So we've had a great relationship to China. They've been great partners throughout this time. San Diego was the first zoo to get pandas on loan in the world. So we kind of started a new program. The loan agreement has us helping the Chinese with science, with monetary, helping finance different parts of their conservation program. So it's really been a success, and China's done some amazing things to help stabilize the population.
And I know conservation is very important for the San Diego Zoo. How did having the pandas here in San Diego help with those efforts?
A number of ways. First, it allows us to tell about the plight of pandas to the general public and raise awareness of so many millions of people over the years. When the pandas first came in 1996, many experts thought the panda was on its way to extinction. They were declining in the wild. We didn't know how to raise them in zoos even. So through our time here, through our studies, we've been able to really turn that around with our colleagues in China.
And talk about some successes. I understand that there were some accomplishments with the conservation program here at the San Diego Zoo with the birth of some pandas.
Right, so we've had 6 births over the years here in San Diego. When the pandas came here early on, zoos didn't know how to care for pandas. They didn't know how to raise pandas, how to get them to reproduce. But over the years, through studying their behavior, from working on different scientific aspects, we've been able to turn that around. In 1996, most pandas that were born did not survive, whereas today, most pandas in zoos and breeding centers survive at a very high rate.
And of course, everyone wants their chance to see the pandas here at the San Diego Zoo for the last time. Are you doing anything to accommodate this increased interest? Are there going to be more showings?
So the pandas will be on exhibit through April 27th. They're open most of the day. Check at the front gate when you come in to see what the schedule for that day is, because each day is a little bit different. But if you check the morning schedule, you'll be able to sure to hit them sometime during the day.
And of course, we're going to miss the giant pandas, so we haven't forgotten about them yet. But I know people are probably curious to know what's next, what's going to take over the exhibit. Any ideas for any new exhibits that will come and possibly take the place of this panda exhibit?
We haven't made any decisions on what's next. With the pandas, we're going to continue our research, continue our collaboration with our Chinese colleagues so that we can see what's next in that realm. We plan on continuing our conservation work. That's the #1 reason that we're here, is for saving the pandas and so many other endangered species throughout the world.
Bob Weesey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
San Diego could be losing a second professional football team. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says the league behind the San Diego Fleet is suspending operations.
At team offices today, players were seen getting into their cars and leaving SDCCU Stadium. A fleet spokesman says practice for the day had been canceled, and it's unclear what will happen next. The fleet are part of the Alliance of American Football, which debuted earlier this year. The league, known as the AAF, isn't folding, but it is suspending operations. The San Diego fleet started play here at SDSU Stadium back in February, but with news of the league suspending operations, they still had 2 games left, and it appears they're not going to make it to week 9 or 10 of the season. One of those games was at home for April 14th, and with the news today, the future of football in San Diego is now up in the air. The team's office at SDCCU Stadium had a sign on the door today that read in part, "We are closed for the remainder of the day." Earlier this morning, the fleet's website for tickets was still accessible, but by early afternoon, it had been removed. It's unclear what will happen to fans who had tickets for the fleet game scheduled on April 14th in San Diego. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
According to reports, the AAF plans to keep a small staff on hand to seek new investment capital and to restructure the business. 2 years and $1 billion later, water is flowing down the Oroville Dam spillway in Northern California. The Department of Water Resources opened the spillway this morning. Officials say they needed to start releasing water now in anticipation of a melting snowpack. 2 years ago, heavy storms damaged both the main spillway and the emergency spillway. Nearly 200,000 people were evacuated when officials feared the entire reservoir could collapse. San Diego is warming up, but wind advisories are in effect for the county. Meteorologist Jeff Cornish has details.
Hope you're doing well out there this evening. It is going to be a pretty windy time tonight. There are wind advisories in effect through tonight until Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. So really midday, essentially. Not for the coast, but for the mountains and the deserts. So for inland areas away from the city. And there may be some issues tied to low visibility. Blowing dust may reduce visibility, especially into the Coachella Valley and also through some of the passes. And then we'll be cooler as well Wednesday. So we're a little warm today, but that onshore breeze will eventually change things around for us. So here are the official wind advisories as issued by the National Weather Service. And you can see that it really is the inland areas. So not including the coast, not including San Diego proper or Oceanside for that matter. Satellite and radar shows that there is some extra moisture to the north. We're kind of pulling things out here. And the wet season has been a good one across most of the Golden State, especially to the north. Into parts of the Bay Area and east into Sacramento. It's been a wet day today. Snow levels into the central Sierras are around 6,000 feet or so. Tonight, we will be dealing with an increase in the cloud cover, 59 degrees for our low in the heart of the metro area. Elsewhere around the region, as that wind begins to increase, Ramona, we're looking at a low around 50 degrees, Mount Laguna 41, and Campo a little chilly at 39, Borrego Springs around 58 degrees. And into the Wednesday forecast, it's going to be a nice, quiet, seasonable day. A little cooler than today has been. Showers pretty well restricted to the Bay Area and north. Not an issue for us, not even an issue for the San Joaquin Valley. And as we look at the highs tomorrow, back up to 79 in Borrego Springs. El Cajon around 71 degrees, and we're around 67 for a very pleasant, slightly cooler and somewhat breezy Wednesday into San Diego. The late week forecast shows pleasant weather holds on for the desert Southwest and also to the Southern California coast. Showers linger to the north into the Central Valley. So the coast forecast, we're going to be into the mid to upper 60s out there. Clouds thicken a bit later in the week. Into the inland areas, we're on track for upper 60s and low 70s. Then a warmer Sunday, 81. We really heat up. The desert, 91 comes Sunday. Temperatures on a steady increase after we get through this brief midweek cool down. And the mountainous locations jump from the 50s into the mid to upper 60s come Sunday. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News. Back to you.
And tonight, we just wanted to clarify a story we ran last Thursday. We reported that Manny Machado signed a $3 million contract with the Padres when he actually signed a $300 million contract with the team. Now for a recap of today's top stories. San Diego State University and its contractors are facing backlash for allegedly releasing volatile chemicals into the air, causing students and faculty to become sick. In issue violations, the parties involved have 10 days to respond. More than 80 women are suing Sharp Grossmont Hospital and Sharp Healthcare, claiming they were videotaped without their consent. That's according to KPBS media partner iNews Source. The lawsuit claims as many as 1,800 women were secretly recorded between 2012 and 2013. San Diego could be losing a second professional football team. The Alliance of American Football League, which owns the San Diego fleet, is suspending operations. The reason behind the move is unclear. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, a new initiative in City Heights is using artists to beautify the neighborhood. How the artwork will help. And on Midday Edition, a new performance here in San Diego honors the late playwright Sam Shepard. Where and when you can see it. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.